guys, it's Keels for Reels, and we need to talk about this. So I'm sure you guys have all seen it online. They dropped the new trailer for the Cats movie. A lot of people have had a lot of opinions on it. A lot of people saying that the cats are horrifying and that they're really bad CGI and all that fun stuff. A lot of people just have been saying what's bad about it. But I'm here today to discuss whether or not it can be fixed. God, I hope so. I think it is important to establish just straight off the bat that I am not a big fan of the musical Cats. Don't get me wrong, I am a huge fan of the animal that is known as the feline, but I still think, you know, this movie can be saved. They're probably not gonna take my advice because I'm just like a lowly YouTuber just starting out, but just work with me here, okay? We're gonna have fun. So this video is basically just gonna be me talking. Unfortunately, my laptop is broken right now and I can't really do much editing. So I'm just gonna talk straight. I have a few props with me just in case. Number one, make them more cat-like. So a common complaint that people are having is that it's too creepy. They look like too human-ish. It's in the the uncanny valley area. And I think that can be fixed by making them look less human. Wow! A common thing that's brought up when it comes to character designs or fashion, anything that deals with the physical form, is about having a good, clean silhouette. Something that is distinctive yet clear. So these are two silhouettes that I drew based off of Cats, the Broadway show and the movie. So from what I've seen from the trailer, you can definitely see a head shape, the body, legs, all that fun stuff, arms. It makes it kind of look like a weird alien humanoid thing. And then I drew a silhouette of what most of the outfits from the Broadway show look like. And as you could see, there is a lot more fur sticking out from their cheeks and stuff. They have shoulder pieces that are a lot furrier. I'm not saying the movie should strictly copy the Broadway version because, as you can see, they have leg warmers on their arms and their legs. But it's to give them more of a furry appearance. So I can see why they put these here. And I think there is this thing in Hollywood movies where it's like they don't want them to look too ugly per se. They want to keep the sexiness of the body and like the prettiness of the human face. A lot of times they try to make it not as fanciful, which is a problem I will be getting to in a little bit. Besides, they're cats. They're not supposed to look hot. They're cats. They're cats. Number two, noses. Wow. You just, God. So whenever anyone is trying to get across the idea of a cat, they usually have like three specific things. They got ears, they have whiskers, and they have a nose, which seems to be very absent from the movie. And I drew some of these noses to make a point. I drew different like variations and styles of a cat. They all have distinctive things. They got whiskers, they got ears, and they got noses, those little cat noses. Even if you got like some girl dressing up as a Halloween costume, as a sexy black cat or whatever, they always have that little nose. A lot of the actors in the movie just have like the fur and the ears and stuff, and then just a human face. Well, human faces and cat faces do not look the same. I think noses is a big thing. Like, you would think they would get that right. Any amateur school production or community college play, whatever, they always have a little drawn on nose for, you know, a cowardly lion or a cat or whatever. I think noses is a very important part of a cat. It is boopable and it is adorable, and it is missing from the cat movie. Also giving them like that little cat, what lips, just like this part right here, the little three, upside down three or whatever, you know, you used to use it on emojis back in the day. You will see that if you watch like the original Cats, they do kind of the little three thing, or at least they diminish the lips, that way it looks more cat-like, like, you know, I don't know what it's called. Again, the Cats movie does not have to be exactly like the show, but You know, there's certain things that they did here that they got right, which is weird coming from me because I don't even like cats that much. I didn't think you could go wrong in making a cat, but apparently you can. Else I would not be making this video. Number 3, fantasy over realism. See what I did there? In general, that is a problem that I feel a lot of CGI movies have nowadays, is they're like, well, we want to make it look more realistic. You know, there's times and places where you want stuff to look more realistic, but when you're working with something that is clearly of the fantasical, I don't know what the word, more of the fantasy-ish element, we already know it's not real. But this movie was like Warrior Cats the musical, and they wanted them to actually look like real cats. They just CGI real cats, but we know these are people in costumes because like they have to dance and they have to sing, and you know, dancing is also a very big part of the show. You don't have to go the extra mile and put all this like fancy, expensive like technology on them to be like, oh yeah, their fur moves like a real cat's fur would move. I think if they had more practical effects and they could like paint it on them and like really work with the wigs and stuff, they would look much more distinctive and have much more of a character. Sure, it might be a little past like the realm of realism. Another prime example is something like Detective Pikachu, which came out earlier this year. We know Pokemon aren't real in real life. It's not like they try to take Pikachu and make him like a real rat or something. It's like, no, they kept the design, the cutesy, exaggerated anime design, but they add real textures. Even though he didn't look like something that could exist in real life, like we still bought it because it was still like adorable. It actually felt like our childhood went to the big screen. And this is my interpretation of what a real life Pikachu would look like. I'd rather see something more of the fantasy type than the like realistic type, because that'd be kind of horrifying. Before the plot. The reason I'm bringing this one up is because since the trailer came out, it's been getting a lot of attention and it's basically reached mainstream meme status. And a lot of people are seeing this who have never seen the Broadway show or aren't familiar with Broadway stuff at all, but non-Broadway people are getting interested and they're looking up the show because they're like, wow, this is horrifying. The fuck's going on? So they're looking at the plot and they're realizing there is none. Wow. And maybe some people are realizing, oh no, we can't rely on spectacle and expensive stuff alone to make our musical work. So a quick rundown if you don't know what it is. These feral cats in London, they're having a ball. A lot of dancing. And at the end of the night, one of them is gonna be picked to be reborn, you know, reincarnated into a new life. That's basically it. Basically, the entirety of the show is just cats coming up and singing, hey, this is me, this is who I am, and I'm so quirky, oh my god, oh my god. And technically, a Broadway show not having a plot isn't really anything new. For a quick Broadway history lesson, back in the 70s, they started coming out with this thing called a concept musical, which is basically what it sounds like. They just have a vague concept and then the rest of the show is just kind of around that concept or just like playing with the idea of something. And it can be done well. And for a concept musical to work, you really do have to have something to compensate for the lack of plot. And a lot of them do, but when Cats came out in the 80s, they really didn't. For those who don't know, it's based off like these old poems that T.S. Eliot wrote back in like the 30s. And so they're just like little short vignettes. They're just short little poems about cats. However, in the 80s, the idea of a mega musical was really gaining traction and was very, very popular. And while both can be good, like just because you have a high budget doesn't mean your thing is good. So I think Cats got away with it a lot. They had a lot of spectacle and amazing things that hadn't yet been seen on the Broadway stage at that time. But that's been something people have been saying about Cats for a very, very long time. It doesn't weigh out like the spectacle and the plot and characters and stuff. It's kind of style over substance with some great dancing thrown in there. So now that we know the lack of plot really isn't cutting it, especially in today's modern time, we're asking, well, how do we fix that? And the answer is stakes. You've got to up the stakes. That is an awful arrow. Oh my god. Up the stakes. It's basically just adding stakes to the characters. Why Do they want to be reborn? What's their reasoning behind it? And what's gonna happen if they don't get it? What is on the line for them? And it's something I think can be added so easily. Like you just add maybe an extra little scene here and there, maybe add a few extra verses on a song, a little moment to explain, oh yeah, I think I'd like to be reborn because of this. It's cats like auditioning to be nominated to get reborn, but very few of them ever express why. If they either just straight out say it, or they imply it, or have more of a subtle reference to it, I think they can really up the stakes with that, because that makes you care about the characters. Just an example off the top of my head is a cat called the Rum Tum Tugger. You know, he's got a pretty cool song. He's like kind of a rock star cat, and he's like, oh yeah, all the girl cats love me. Oh, my life is great. I'm such a bad boy. His life is pretty great the way it is. I have no reason to want him to be reborn. If they maybe add a few things, he's like, yeah, I have a pretty great life, but I also have these inner demons I have to deal with from abusing drugs, catnip, I don't know, whatever drugs cats have. Or even like a shallow reason, like, hey, it'd just be fun. I think a show that has a very similar concept and does it much better, I mean, there's a few I can think of, but the prime example for me is A Chorus Line. Very brief rundown. There's these dancers auditioning for a Broadway show, and at the end of the night, only 8 of them are gonna be picked. And the whole show is the audition process and them basically talking about themselves and their life story. So similarly, it's a concept musical without much of a plot and much more character-based and dance-based. But the main difference here that Chorus Line does that Cats doesn't, it makes you care about the characters. It gives them stakes. At the beginning, they sing about how badly they need this job. This is their employment. They need this frickin' job. And then the rest of the show is getting to know them as people. And you get to know why they dance, why they want this job, why they do what they do, what events in their life led them to this moment. And it makes it so much more emotional, and you really start to sympathize with the characters. You know, maybe there's certain characters that you do want to get in, maybe some you don't. Those familiar with more newer Broadway shows, I would say something like the 25th annual Spelling Bee is also a good example. Kids doing Spelling Bee, only one gets it at the end, but you still get to know the characters as it goes on. So those are shows that I feel like have small plots or like almost non-existent plots and have done that concept way better. Granted, there are some people that don't like those shows either, but whatever. I'm just trying to see if we can fix Cats. So in short, do I think Cats 2019 can be fixed? Honestly, yes, I do think it can be fixed. I just don't think it will be fixed. There was a little behind the scenes little video that they released a few days before they dropped the trailer, and it went into detail about how expensive the technology for the suits were and stuff, and how much effort they're putting in. No one's really talking about the sets. The sets are really cool. And I believe the release date is Christmas time? I think it's like Christmas time this year. So granted, I just don't think they really have much time to fix a lot of this stuff. The noses thing, like, that's really easy. You can just put it on there and I think it will make a world of difference. I think adding stakes to the characters would be a huge improvement. And like I said, you could just add like a few extra lines or a few extra verses here and there, but they're probably almost done with the movie at this point. So it's really hard to say if they would. Plus there could be a pride thing. So a lot of people just like Cats the way it is. And that's another thing. Some of these problems with Cats date back all the way to when it first came on Broadway. So even if they did do every single one of these things, I don't think it would have made it great by any means. I still don't think I would really care for it, but I do think I'd like it more or find it more entertaining. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts. You know, a lot of people can just like complain and like rip apart the CGI and the effects and the plot, whatever, but I like to be more constructive. I like to think of like, well, how can we fix this? How can we make this better? And I want to know if you guys have ideas. What are some little changes they can make that might be able to save it? Maybe not make it just good, but actually make it great. Leave a comment down below, like, share, subscribe, go grab a cat, hug it really tight but not too tight, and then give it a kiss for me. This is Keels for Real signing out.